So the next step that we need to do is take these annotations now that we've read through them and we've really looked at this text a lot closer and figure out, one, does Tracy actually succeed in convincing Stephen Jones to take the case? And then how did she try to convince him? So I know that, that she was not successful, because here we see starting in April 23rd and then down here to May 10th, even though it was, only a couple weeks, she never got a response. So so she did not get Jones, at least in this portion of the text, to take the case. So what we're going to do is this next step, based on the annotations and the fact that we've closely read this text, we are going to come up with a theme statement. Okay, so how did Tracy attempt to persuade Jones? What strategies did she use? Well, I know that in here, I remember from my markings that she tried to guilt him into taking it, but she also really tried to rely on a family connection. So she really did use some of the personal connections and personal details to try to persuade him. So Tracy used a personal connection to Jones, as well as guilt, as an attempt to make him feel guilty. Okay. So I think I might add in here, in an attempt to get Stephen Jones to take her case, her father's case, and prove his innocence, Tracy used a personal connection to Jones as well as an attempt to make him feel guilty. She did not achieve her goal or her purpose. And when I think about this, why or why not, there are a lot of different reasons that, Jones may not have actually responded. But based on what I see only in the text, I'm going to kind of make a guess that there may be some like political or professional kind of interference that Jones is not able or willing to take. So here it says, I've been watching the progress this year. Every time I see good news, I think you might be ready to take on our case, but then you don't. Will you do it this time? Everyone in my family's given up. So so we can see that he's busy, right? So congratulations on the Donovan case out in California. Tracy and Jones are both located in Alabama. So we can see that maybe Jones is just really busy and he already has a bunch of cases that he's working on. So I understand this to kind of be that Jones was not able to take her case. Actually, no, I'll change that a little bit. So she did not achieve her goal, no matter how much she tried to make a personal connection to Jones. He has other cases that he's working on, and maybe he just literally does not have the time or does not have the ability to take the case. Okay. If he's been out in California, maybe her letters haven't actually been getting to him. Maybe they've just been going to the headquarters, and he's not in Alabama right now. So that's kind of a guess that I'm making, an inference. I'm trying to connect some dots. So in an attempt to get Stephen Jones to take her father's case and prove his innocence, Tracy uses a personal connection to Jones as well as an attempt to make him feel guilty. Let's say guilty about not taking the case. She did not achieve her goal, no matter how much she tried to make a personal connection to Jones. He has not responded. This might be because he has other cases that he's working on, and maybe he doesn't have the ability to take the case. Okay. So why do I think that Johnson, the author of this, Kim Johnson, this excerpt is from This Is My America. Why do I think that Johnson engineered this outcome? What do you think Johnson is trying to express to the reader by creating this outcome? So, why do you? So I think that Johnson wants the reader to think about how many different details can go into making one decision. Okay, and I'm going to explain my thinking here because it says, like, what do you think we're, like, why? Why is she creating this? By showing the lack of response to Tracy's letters, let's say the audience is able to see that we don't always get the attention and focus that we hope for. This could be for a variety of reasons, or a number of reasons. But sometimes it just doesn't happen. Okay. So a couple of things that I do want to mention. I had said we earlier, and I was like, oh no, I'm going to change that to the audience. When we are writing, we want to try to keep things in a third person perspective. Okay. I did intentionally put I think that in here, because when we're answering a question, why do you think Johnson engineered this outcome? Most of the time we will say, I think this, right? What we can then do is remove the I think that, all right? So change it from I think Johnson wants her reader to Johnson wants the reader to think about how many different details can go into making one decision, okay? By showing the lack of response to Tracy's letters, the audience is able to see that we don't always get the attention and focus we're hoping for. This could be for a number of reasons, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. Okay. I may end up revising this a little bit in my final draft, just because that statement doesn't fully kind of convey what I'm saying here, but it's a starting point, and that's really all this is. So now this is going to be pretty much the bulk of my intro. I've got 4 or 5 sentences here, and it's my thesis statement. I'm explaining my first thoughts, right? So what I am then going to do is copy this and put it in here. Okay, the next page has this table. Actually, that should be a period. There we go. So that is actually my entire first paragraph. By working in segments like this, we're able to connect everything together and have a draft of an entire paragraph. Okay. And then these next chunks are really going to be kind of the explanation of all of this. Okay. So what does Tracy say to Jones that is an attempt at persuasion? The first thing that I did identify here was that personal connection. So I'm just going to try to look at which of my annotations, which of my markings really show a strong attempt at personal connection. Okay. And really it's these first 2 letters here. We see a shift between the first 2 and the second 2, but I see this down here. Jamal is going to college. Okay. But then I also see up here the congrats on the Donovan case out in California. So they're both an attempt to kind of connect personally. So I got to figure out which one would I really want to focus in on. Maybe there's both, but I need to try to find 2 different techniques and strategies that she's using. So I can't just rely on both of these as my 2 pieces of evidence. So I think I'm going to say in this box, I'm going to go with the Jamal going to college detail. So in the PS of the first letter, Tracy talks about, okay, because I don't want to use this entire quote. Not everything in here is going to be, directly explained. So I'm going to kind of describe what's happening there first. So Tracy talks about how her brother is going to college, and it appears that he, hold on a second. Okay, to college, and that he got scholarships. After mentioning this detail, Tracy adds, if you have those letters where I say he was wasting his time, please destroy them. Okay. So that's the detail from the text. That's what she's saying. Now I have to actually explain, how does that show an attempt at persuasion? Okay. So by making by referencing letters that Tracy has sent Mr. Jones in the past, we see that they know each other. They actually know each other. Okay. And that they have spoken before. Okay, or at least we can make those kind of assumptions, right? We're seeing that there's some history there. Okay, there's a connection. So by referencing letters that Tracy has sent Mr. Jones in the past, we see that they actually know each other and that they have spoken before. She has pulled in details from her family that show how, one, they have struggled in the past, because we can kind of make the inferences that, hey, he's actually going to college. Like there may have been some doubt. Okay, so that the family has struggled in the past and that things may be turning around for them. Okay, so this appeals to Mr. Jones's personal emotions in an attempt to help make sure that other things in Tracy's life are turning around a bit. He can help with that by taking her dad's case. Okay, so we see this connection, and if I pop up that comment, okay, oops. If I look at the comment that is already there, if it lets me. Sorry, guys. It's not letting me. Okay. I know that the comment that I left there was, and this is why Google is way more intuitive. You can look at your comments, but it's talking about how there is that personal connection, how she's referencing stuff that she's talked about in the past, and she's really like trying to have that personal interaction with him, which is what I explained up here, right? They've had that experience in the past where they know each other and they've spoken. So they pulled those family details, okay? What else does Tracy say in an attempt to persuade Jones, right? We need to find something that's not specifically a personal connection. She's not trying to like grab onto his personal emotions and make him be like, oh man, that like Tracy, that Beaumont family, I gotta help them. So this is where I'm going to look at the next set of letters, because things shift to more of a guilt sort of lens. And the two places that I really remember that guilt popping up is here, use every last drop of money we have, which is almost nothing. And then also, right now, I'm looking for hope, for something to make me feel hopeful, and I've got nothing. Okay, so those two lines really stand out to me because she's trying to guilt him into it. She's trying to really like make him feel bad for not taking the case. So I think I'm going to go with the second one. I'm looking for something to make me feel hopeful, and I have got nothing. Okay. So in the last paragraph of Tracy's May 7th letter, okay, so this is all text evidence. I may be describing some of it, not just popping a quote in, but I'm directly referencing the text. Okay. Let me see. Oh, 1 second. And now the stickies aren't wanting to pop up. Okay. So in the last paragraph of Tracy's May 7th letter, she says, right now, that's not the very start of the quote, that is a couple words in. Right now, I'm looking for something to make me feel hopeful. I've got nothing. Okay. Now you may be saying, wow, you just used contractions. I'm instead of I am, I've instead of I have. If they are in quotes, remember we can use contractions. We need to represent quotes as they directly appear in the text. Okay. So here's my text evidence. In the last paragraph of Tracy's May 7th letter, she says, right now I'm looking for something to make me feel hopeful, and I've got nothing. Okay, well, how is that an attempt at persuasion? Okay. By adding on the I've got nothing line, she tries to make Mr. Jones feel guilty about not taking the case. Okay. If he would have just stepped up and helped when she first reached out, then she believes that her brother would not have been targeted and blamed for, what was the girl's name? I don't know that she's mentioned it yet, but I believe her name is Angela. Yes, Angela. So, Angela's death. By showing this lack of hope, she attempts to guilt Jones into taking her dad's case now, so that she and her family can hold on to just a little bit of hope. Okay. Essentially, she places the well-being of her entire family on Jones's shoulders. It makes him carry that guilt. Okay. Just by having that line, because right now I'm looking for something to make me feel hopeful, and I've got nothing. And she's been talking about how this has impacted her family. So now it's not just her. She's like, this hope, there's nothing. Okay. So those are two different techniques that she uses. She uses that emotional personal connection, and then she also uses the attempt at guilt. So does Tracy succeed or fail in persuading Jones to take the case? In the end, we see no response from Stephen Jones. So it is clear that Tracy has failed in getting him to take the case. Okay. Explain how or why we know that her attempts either failed or succeeded. Well, because there was no response, any of her letters, we see the frustration and defeat in Tracy's tone. She has come to accept that Jones is not, we don't know if he ever will, but is not representing her father, nor is he responding to her attempts to represent her brother in this new case. Okay. So it's all because he has not responded. Without his response, we see no action. This is not the outcome that Tracy hoped for. Okay, so it means that she failed, right? So what larger message is being conveyed here? Like there's a lot happening in these few pages, and there are a lot of lessons to kind of take from this. But it's not necessarily the overall theme. And this is really, what do we think that Kim Johnson, the author of this, is trying to get us to understand about kind of like how different techniques really impact each other, different interactions might play out. And so this is where we're going to have to really like work on our inferences and making some connections. So this is going to be the big focus of Monday's class. Okay, is taking everything together and really figuring out what larger message do we have here.